Everybody, T.C. Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, the hottest show on television, where God-given dreams get activated right before your very eyes. And I'm thrilled that you've come by today to watch our show, and what a show we've got lined up for you today. I'd like to welcome back to the show for a second time on God Made Millionaire TV, Mr. Stan Lewis. Stan is the executive director with the John Maxwell team and a volunteer leader for the Royal Ranger Ministry. He honorably served our country in the United States Navy and has a heart for helping parents walk fearlessly in this world as they raise their children. So, without any further ado, let's crack open that bank vault and let's activate some God-given dreams. Stan Lewis, welcome back to the show.
TC, great to be back here, my brother. Great to be back here.
You know, Stan, you are back for season 2. You were here on season 1, and what a episode you had with us last season. As a matter of fact, I want to roll a little bit of your appearance here from season 1.
I was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Oh, no.
Being in the Navy and being a law enforcement officer, that didn't prepare me for what was to come with that. And you know, it scared me. It really, really did. But God is a good God, and I'm cancer-free now.
Praise God.
But it left me wondering, TC, you know, what, am I doing enough? I just started asking myself these questions, and in 2019, God laid on my heart Folds of Honor. I contacted Folds of Honor, asked if I could fundraise for them, and they said yes.
You're calling, what God has called you to do is to raise money for these kids that need money to go to school. Would that be right?
Absolutely, TC. And I tell you what, I got more out of that, I think, than what I gave to them.
Stan, you've been busy since season 1. You have authored another book, right?
That is correct. I've authored a book called Fearlessly Parenting, positively influencing your kid and teen to go in the way that they're meant to go.
Right. Now, in this current pandemic, you and I were talking about one of the challenges, I think, that we face is with our kids, especially given the pandemic and the restraints that have been placed on our kids. It's been very damaging for our kids. Would you agree with that?
I'd absolutely agree with that. Kids and teens are with mom and dad. Mom and dad are having to parent through more today than they've ever had before.
Stan, where did this burden for our young people come from that God has gifted you with?
Well, from two sources. One, my father, who I discovered in my late 20s was an absolute genius. You know, when I was coming up, I didn't think my daddy knew anything. And another source that was a mentor for me was my Royal Ranger commander, Marvin Lemke. Between the two of them, I couldn't get away with anything. And it was wonderful having those two mentors because it helped me become the man I am today. But in today's world, things are a little bit different, particularly with kids having to stay at home. The role models they would have interacted with in school, in church, in several different areas, they're not getting to do that because of the pandemic.
Not only that, Stan, but does your program address and help the parents of these children?
Absolutely.
Because I think parents are in uncharted water with their kids, helping their kids navigate through this pandemic. So does your training program address that?
Absolutely. You know, a lot of parents today, they have a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, you know, because we want to be that perfect parent. We want to be like that parent that we see at the PTA. We want to be like that parent that we see at church. What my program does and what my book does is help parents to realize you don't have to be like that PTA member that you see or that church member or mom or dad down the street. Just try to be the best version of yourself every day as a parent and a person. And God will give you everything you need to be the best version of yourself. And I see myself coming alongside of parents and helping guide them toward becoming the best version of themselves.
It's interesting because when were you burdened with this burden for the kids that you have right now?
Well, I was listening to Dr. Deborah Tillman. She's the president of the John Maxwell Family and Parenting Program. And she is such a wonderful Christian woman and has a heart for kids. And listening to her and listening to her vision to go back and take our kids and our families back from the enemy. The pandemic is the pandemic, but, Satan's at work here and now. And we just need to fight back. And I just want to give parents some tips, some advice that's going to help them, help their kids go to the best level that they can be.
And you know what? As parents, I know it's very frustrating because you want to help, but sometimes you just don't have the right strategy.
Absolutely, because as parents, if I communicate with you, typically I'm going to communicate in the way that I understand. But not everybody's the same, TC. Not every child is the same. So this is another thing that we do is to come in and teach parents that this child and this child may have totally different behavioral traits. And if you want to connect, not just simply communicate, because a lot of people communicate without connecting, but if you want to connect with that child, you have to speak to him or her in the language that they understand.
Stan, I think that the devastation that our kids have gone through with this pandemic, there's a price that we're going to have to pay as a society unless we take action now to help these kids. And what I mean by that is, growing up, I had so many experiences as playing with my friends and events at school and teachers that shaped me into the man that I am today. And yet our kids have been denied this for this season.
Absolutely
How
correct.
critical is it to get these strategies and to sow into that younger generation, Stan?
Well, you have to realize that this generation, that's our future. So we need to take the time to pour into our child. But some parents are like, okay, well, what do I need to do? Well, Fearlessly Parenting will give you some tips, give you some traits on how to foster servant leadership in your children, to give your children a growth mindset to help them become the best version of themselves. And we also have maintenance tips off in there. And then there's a chapter on troubleshooting. And so that, it deals with communication, lack of forgiveness, and things like that. So there's a lot in there for parents to help their children become self-led.
Well, you've got me intrigued, certainly, about those topics, but the lack of forgiveness, that stood out to me. Talk about that and how that dynamic in that parent son or daughter relationship is.
Well, we carry things, and it's like luggage. We get mad at somebody's hurt us, and if you never deal with it, you carry that around. But here's the thing, TC, the person that you're mad at, the person that you're not forgiving, they're going on with their life. And parents need to understand how to have conversation with their kids to bring these things out, deal with them, and get them set aside, because that just provides the enemy a way into that child's life, and unforgiveness can destroy you.
Right. So talk about this You've got a book, and you've got a training program that corresponds with the book. So who is that designed specifically for?
It is designed for moms, dads, guardians, to be able to go through it at their own pace, to learn these tips and different techniques for working with their children. And there's 11 chapters, there's 11 modules, and they could start with the first module, they could jump all the way down to the last module. Anywhere they want to jump in between is a good starting point, and just go through it. But what I would ask all moms and dads to do is, when you finish, set aside 45 minutes to go through a module. And once you're done, there's a workbook where you can write down the answers and thoughts and concerns that you had as you went through the module, and then take the time to reflect on those and pray about those.
Well, I got to tell you, Stan, I have a great respect not only for you, but this work that you're doing to help our young kids.
Absolutely.
I can understand why parents are so frustrated right now because they just don't have the strategy.
No, they don't. And, you know, unless you know what your why is, that's another problem, TC. Parents, they love their kids, they love their spouses, but they don't know what their why is. Part of my training and part of what they'll go through when they go through the course is to develop a why statement. Why is family important to me? And it's called a 7 levels deep exercise. And I walk them through these levels. And by the time you get down to the 7th level, you know what your why is. Once you know what your why is, you will do what is necessary to make sure that your kids are raised up to become the best version of themselves.
Stan, what about grandparents? Is this a training program for grandparents?
This is good for grandparents because you have grandparents out there that are guardians. So this helps them too. Adoptive parents.
Right.
Foster parents. So any mom, dad, guardian, this book is for you to help you and your kids and teenagers become the best version of themselves.
Stan, what I'd like you to do as we close out our segment, I can't believe we're at the end of our segment, but before you go, I want you to speak a word of inspiration, of hope, of encouragement to those parents, those grandparents, those adoptive parents, those guardians. Speak a message of hope and inspiration to them, please.
Parents, God gave you your children, and He wouldn't have given you those children if you didn't have the ability to take care of your children and to raise them up in a godly fashion, specifically in the fashion of Proverbs 22:6. So I want to encourage you parents to go to parentsbefearless.com, parentsbefearless.com, and get the book, get the workbook. There's an audio book also that goes along with it, as well as a master course on parenting that's also in this whole package. So you get all of that in one place, parentsbefearless.com.
Stan Lewis, will you come back and see me?
Oh, absolutely.
Fantastic.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.